Hi,
Awesome.
everybody. This is us, the Candid Wholesale community, here with Itasha and Rebekah Jaramillo of Rebekah J Designs. We're going to be doing a wholesale platform review. Yeah, I'll let you guys take it away.
Yeah,
Awesome.
well, I had seen Rebecca's post on Instagram about doing a survey about Faire and asking brands and makers about it. And so we started communicating when I saw that. And I was wondering what was like your impetus for beginning that conversation?
I guess it mostly came about because I had gotten a couple of emails from them trying to get me to come over to the platform. And so not really knowing a whole lot about it, I kind of started poking around and just wanted to obviously lean on the support of people who had used it and I knew that I had specifically knew people that were a part of it, but had no idea what anyone had to say about it. So I just kind of wanted to engage in the conversation and yeah, we got some pretty interesting responses.
Yeah. And so is this the first time they had reached out to you, or had you heard about them before and like you were interested in it, but this was kind of just a good time for you to like consider that as an option?
Yeah, they've reached out to me a couple of times before.
Okay.
And I kind of felt like I had it under control of my own systems and where I was with my business. And so I didn't really need to explore another option, especially one that was a paid option. And so I just kind of ignored them for a while. But seeing as trade shows are kind of looking a little different, I just have been really curious and just wanting to explore what it's going to look like for me in the next coming years, because this is probably going to be different for a while.
Yeah, and I think you're not alone in wondering what that's going to look like. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I should jump in with a quick disclosure that we are. Oh, sorry. We at Candid we make a product that can either compete with Faire or complement it. But I wanted to just throw that out at the beginning as we start talking about that we do have a horse in this race, but honestly, we're not out here to make any of the other solutions out there look bad, and are going to try to offer as unbiased of an assessment as we can. But that is our disclosure moment.
Yeah, we're coming at this from a place of curiosity mostly to see like what you found out in your survey. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting way to do it too. So yeah.
And I think the survey too, it shed a lot, like the survey began as a very specific question on Faire, and then it instantly yielded itself to all of the other avenues, as the maker community is incredibly supportive and open with sharing most of them, all of them, the ones that I've encountered. I had a lot of advice from people that wasn't necessarily centered around Faire. It was centered around a lot of things. And so, and Candid being one of those. So that was really, really great information.
Yeah, and there are a lot of wholesale options out there and different ways to do it. And I think people, especially right now, are thinking, how can I still have this be a part of my business, even if it's slow? So yeah, it's a big question.
Yeah. And I feel like this time just lends itself to exploring and, dabbling and talking, really.
Right. Restructuring. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just talking to friends and seeing what's working for other people in this time, because we're all having to get a little bit creative. And so I had just really some great conversations with people who I admire, and then some snippets of information within the questionnaire that just were eye-opening and helpful. Yeah. And I can share those too if you want to delve into those. What do you think?
I think that we talked about maybe you including or sending over the survey, and we can share it on our page, but maybe you can go over the questions that you came up with. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really lend itself to being put together quickly with so I kind of gave up after a little bit.
We've got a lot of time, so it's okay.
So let's see. So I created the questionnaire in 2 different paths. So you could come at it either as a maker or as a shopkeeper, because I was really curious on both sides of the question. How does using a wholesale platform look for both parties? And it's really important to me, obviously, as a maker, how easy that process is, how expensive that process is for me. Do my margins allow for what Faire would be asking for me from each one of those sales? And then on the opposite side of the coin is what does it look like for a shopkeeper? Why do they want it? Why is it good for them? And in learning how it's good for them, if I weren't to use that platform, are there things that I can learn from why it's beneficial to them that I can apply for myself?
Totally. Yeah.
So I guess we'll just start with the review, the information that I got from the shopkeepers. I only had 3 shops reply, but I think the information that I got from them was pretty helpful. And let's see, the first question was, do you use Faire to find new product for your shop? One of the replies that I got was, no, I do not use Faire. I've heard of Faire, but honestly, I don't know much else. It sounds like it could be an interesting from a shop perspective for buying, but it could also be a lot for me to sort through and one more account to maintain. I don't travel to shows yet. I just find my artists through good old online research, which is very time consuming. I'd be interested to see how many artists that I currently work with are affiliated with Faire. I don't know if this is helpful, she said. And I'm maintaining most of the anonymity from the shops, just
yeah, totally.
So that, yeah. And then the 2 other shops that replied said yes, that they use. So we've got 2 that are using it and 1 that is not using it. The 2 that are using Faire, I asked them, why do they love Faire? And they said, one of them said free freight, the ability to try things at a lower risk, returns of unsold goods. They said that they specified that they don't use that very often, but it is a wonderful cushion. And they also offer easy zip code protection. The other shop said, Faire offers free shipping, so I will rarely order candles or anything heavy if it's not on Faire. Also, it syncs with my point of sale system. At this point, if it's not on Faire, I probably won't order it, which was pretty eye-opening, I guess, in that way.
Hard to beat free shipping, I have to say. That's a pretty great benefit.
Yeah, especially if like candles are heavy. That makes a ton of sense.
Yep, and ceramics too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Larger objects, pillows. I don't know. I've never had to ship pillows or anything like that, but I would imagine the boxes and that kind of thing are pretty large and cumbersome, which would add to cost. The next question was, do you foresee yourself using it more this coming year versus trade shows? I wanted to know where they're going to be. Where are they going to be shopping? How are they thinking about filling their shelves with product? And so this one specifically said, because the airport is so far away, I rarely make it to trade shows. So yeah, she's one of the ones that does use Faire. I also asked that specific shop if she uses any other platforms or is she solely using Faire? And she said for clothing, she uses New Order and Jour, but for jewelry and gift items, Faire is the easiest. She also said that if she did find an artist on Instagram, she would contact them directly and go from there. So she's still out searching around using social media, it looks like, to find some people. I also wanted to know if any of that, I also wanted to know if any of them had placed a wholesale order since the beginning of the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders, and specifically, how did they place that order? And one of them replied yes, directly and with Faire. And then the other one said that she had only done a few specific pieces, not huge orders. So that was kind of the information that I got from shops. It seems like from the retailer's point of view, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I could imagine coming from a shop that uploading information to your website for product and images, if those were to be able to come swiftly into your system, that would be pretty amazing. Be really helpful. Something that, you know, data entry and all that stuff has got to be, I mean, we all know how annoying it is to upload all new content to the website. So if you have a huge order that you place, it's hard. It's a lot of work. So that's super helpful that they would be able to import that information. So yeah, let me know if I'm rushing this too much or anything like that, or if any other questions come up.
Okay. Oh, this is great.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. And then, so I'll move on then to the reply from makers. Let's see. So all of the replies from makers, and I got about 5 replies from makers. All of them are doing wholesale. Oops, sorry. There we go. And there's a handful of people that do and do not use Faire. So it's kind of like 50-50 use Faire and do not use Faire, or had used Faire and are no longer using it. If you're using Faire, do you like it? I got a couple of yeses. I got one yes, I love it, and one yes, but I hate it. If you have used Faire but have stopped, tell me why. And this answer for me was the most pivotal in kind of my decision about whether or not, I guess not pivotal because I still haven't made a decision, but she says, their return policy was killing me. I kept seeing Instagram posts of my products in shops that I had never heard of. And that's because people can buy your items at a discount if some other shop returns it after the 60-day period. It drove me nuts to find my stuff in weird shops. And it also concerned me it would be too close to my favorite retailers and they would get mad. And lastly, they kept selling products that were returned because they were damaged. I literally see them on Instagram getting passed around from store to store. So as a maker, that's pretty painful to be able to sort through why someone has your product at XYZ shop when it's right next to one of your favorite retailers that you've been working with and have an established relationship that's completely out of your control. That is really hard, a hard place to be in, I would think, as a maker. I don't have enough knowing. Yeah. I've not ever had this experience happen before, and I do have a good number of shops, but I don't have enough that I've had to really say no to anybody for like a zip code kind of thing. But I can imagine that this would be a huge thing for someone. Yeah. Let's see. The next question was, any notes or suggestions if you're using Faire? This person says the 25% commission they charge is highway robbery. I think I get a lot of new customers from Faire because of the free shipping. This person makes candles. Candles are so expensive to ship, but this doesn't lead to a lot of reorders. They just keep moving on to the next brand for free shipping. I have been thinking of getting off of Faire for some time now, but with the pandemic, I don't know. I'll probably stick with them for a little bit. So I think that would be hard.
Yeah. I wonder if the free shipping is for the first order only or for all orders. I guess I'm not sure about that part.
Yeah, I think from the way she's describing it, sounds like the first order is free shipping.
Right. Yeah, that is an incentive.
Definitely. Right. And I think one of the other, I'm not sure if it came up in a side conversation, because I definitely had a lot of conversations with people just over Zoom meetings or in DMs. But another person said that it was really hard for her because in all of her other wholesale situations before she was using Faire, she was developing really personal relationships with the vendors or the retailers. And she just found it so hard that when she was with Faire, that that relationship was completely removed, and she wasn't able to develop those kind of, really personal relationships. And for me, as someone who's been at a trade show and met people, it's really, I've been able to create personal relationships, one-on-one meetings with buyers. And as someone I feel who is personable and I enjoy talking to people and getting to know them, I also, my work has a story. And for me to be able to tell that story to you, it's a whole lot easier than for you, that story to be translated via just my website and or through some other vehicle like Faire. It's really, for me, a value to give to the buyer the story behind these pieces, because it's a selling tool. And it not only works for me because it's legit and it's real, and someone can feel that from me when they meet me in person, or if I can convey that over an email or a phone conversation. But it's helpful for them in their day-to-day in that store. If they've met me and they've had an engaging conversation with me, or if they know how personable and I can be over email, or we could discuss if something's wrong, if there's an issue with why these items are not selling, or how best to take care of them. If you have a middleman and those relationships are removed, we're devaluing this business a lot and taking away a lot, in my personal opinion there.
Yeah, as having worked in a retail store, I think that we have a little delay. Just knowing I've worked in a retail store before. And it's so nice to know the people who you're selling, to be like, oh, this person, and like have a little story just to like boost to that sale and make the customer feel like, oh, now I know something and now I want to spend my money on this. It is important. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a shop here in Seattle called Valoria, and they know me very personally. Obviously, I can hand deliver their product because they're right here in my city. But they are a really strong example of people who use their relationships with their makers. They understand the product, and they sell a ton of my jewelry because they have made themselves available to hear what I have to say about it. Let's see. The other questions that I got from the makers were, again, have you received a wholesale order since the beginning of COVID-19? And if so, what source did this come from? This person makes note cards. And she says, yes, I received close to 20 orders in the last month, mostly via Faire. She changed her minimum to 0 and she instantly started getting orders. She said it's less money than usual, but it's still super worth it. She said, I also understand that stationery is very different from jewelry. Obviously, she knew who the questions were coming from. This person says only one. It was from an online store. This person said yes, direct from the wholesaler. And this person said existing customers reordering. She also got one from a trade show contact and one from Faire. So those were kind of my base question, basically all the questions that I got and the most helpful information that I got from the makers and people using or not using Faire, because there was definitely people on there who were not using Faire. Some of the other information that I got from people that didn't relate specifically to Faire, but was definitely related to doing wholesale, was somebody brought up wholesale in a box. And it's not necessarily a platform that buyers can shop from, but it's seemed to be a really helpful tool, and one that I've been exploring over the last couple of days or weeks since I've been having this conversation. But tools to help you as a maker contact shops, communicate with them, best practices, policies, information like that. So what I really found valuable about that type of platform was how it really focused on having a relationship with your buyers, and also the relation, like their product being super helpful, which in contrast to Faire, which seemed like it's a platform built directly just for the buyers. I feel like every benefit from Faire was for the buyers, and aside from exposure, which I desperately want right now, and that's what makes Faire so attractive to me, it seems devoid of any resources other than exposure. Faire does, to me. So yeah.
It's interesting.
I was just going to say that, Faire has a really big community, so the exposure is high, and a lot of people will be able to see your product.
Right.
The thing it sort of reminds me of, as someone who's had experience both buying and selling on this other platform, which is business to consumer rather than business to business, is it's a little like Amazon. I think it's, to some extent, my experience with Amazon was that, as someone who was selling a product there, they would take enormous fees, and it was kind of a hassle, but you couldn't say no, because the exposure that you got was just sort of impossible to argue with. And then on the other side, the customer has a really great experience with free shipping, super generous return policy, everything's just there. But it's, in a sense, it's almost zero sum. It sounds like a lot of what I've heard, and this matches my own experience with Faire as well, is that a lot of what makes it a great place to buy makes it a less than ideal place to sell. Does that seem fair? Does that seem like it matches up with what you've been hearing?
100%. Yeah, I definitely feel that way. I would love, and Dave, like, coming from someone who has recently come over to Candid and is using that as my main source of communication with my suppliers, my relationship with you guys has been incredible. You've been so helpful. You've been, helping me get my all of my information into your system. Any glitches that we've had along the way, you've been really incredibly helpful. And so, we all need each other. Whatever your resource is, we all need each other. And in this time where, the shops are having a hard time, it trickles down and it's the makers who are having a hard time. And it's like, I need you, you need me, let's work together. And I feel like situations like Amazon and Faire and those kinds of businesses drive a wedge that keeps us further apart. I have taken full advantage of free shipping. I like it.
Who hasn't, really?
I like that it comes in 2 days. But shopping local, I've been able to deliver goods on my bike same day. So there's that. I drove around my neighborhood on my bike with my kid, and we delivered orders. So in that comparison, so it's kind of old world, and you kind of need to shift your paradigm a little bit, shift how you're looking at things a little. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to look this year. I love delivering locally, but I also want to sell my stuff to somebody in New York and Kansas, and so I want to get my stuff out there, and I feel like my product has something to do in lots of different places.
Right.
And how do I find those people?
It's a good question.
Yeah. No, those are all really great questions, and it's true. And I think what everybody's making their own decisions right now, but there's just so many factors from, having certain channels just go away entirely. If you have a retail presence that retail presences and trade shows are sort of suffering from the same thing, which is that even if the local legislation says you can be open, that doesn't mean you're going to get customers. There have been all sorts of studies in the last month or so as various places have been reopening, and that's if miraculously the August trade shows are there, that's great.
Right.
I am sure they're going to be very sparsely attended if their doors are open, just because it's one thing to open your doors, it's another thing to convince your entire community that they want to get in a box with each other and breathe for 3 days before flying off to their separate locations. So I think that's, what the thing we've been hearing a lot that is something that is, I think, Faire's strongest point right now is just discovery, is that finding new partners and even though something like 80 to 90% of all wholesale is reorders, this is a good time for first orders. And that's what discovery really, really shines on, because you've got potentially, if you're still in the game, you've potentially lost, if you're a buyer, you've lost sellers. If you're a seller, you've lost buyers, just because of the math of closing businesses. So it's more important than ever to be finding new people.
Yeah, 100%.
But it is interesting. One thing I've noticed about Faire is that when you go to look for things, you're not looking for brands, you're looking for products. And a word that I had to look up initially, but now I use it probably 10 times a day, is commoditization, which we all experience. I'm not looking to form a relationship. I don't have intense brand loyalty here. What I'm looking for, when I go to the store, is a 24 pack of toilet paper. And if it's the kind that wouldn't be my favorite, or hand sanitizer, like if it's not my number one brand, I don't care. I'm just getting that thing. And if there's two of them and one of them's cheaper and they're roughly the same, I'm probably going to go with the cheaper one, which totally makes a lot of sense. It absolutely has its place. I mean, that's the Amazon model in a lot of ways too.
Or the grocery store model.
Or the grocery store model. There's this whole economic discipline about demand elasticity. But that's not the way I think anyone on this call approaches wholesale. That it is, as we keep saying, it's about relationships, and it's about the story, and that just, you almost can't have both, or you can, but you just have to have them in separate boxes, which is to say, you do your Faire and then you do something else.
It's I don't know. I mean, like, in this place of being isolated, I want to value and lean on my personal relationships that I have with shops, and I don't want that to go away. I just think it's so important, and I've never had a store. I don't know what it's like to be a buyer. But like you were saying, Atosha, to be able to have those personal relationships with people, I don't know, I just feel like, and then it comes back to also the situation that stores are in right now. I mean, they're not face to face with people either. Like they're literally putting things on a website. So we're all in the same box. And so how can we be more effective communicators, and, how can I make your job as a buyer easier? What tools can I give them that help tell the story of my work without being able to be in person with their buyers too, with their people that are shopping? My plan for that, I guess I have a few ideas. One of the things that I had talked about with a couple of people was a few people were doing drop shipping. So creating a relationship. And this is something that I've pondered. I feel like my boundaries would be that I would probably only do it with a shop that I had a relationship with, one that I knew I could trust them to pay me, or to establish really clear boundaries on what that relationship is going to look like in terms of when this person buys, what happens, how do I get an email, how do I know where to send it, all that good stuff. I'm open to that. Definitely open to lowering my minimum for reorders. I have created a portal on my website for my buyers or any prospective buyers to come through right into my Candid shop where they can place a wholesale order and pay for it online. You can build everything, put it all in your cart, and looks great, and I love it. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. That's the whole plan. That's why we show up in the morning.
Right. But I've also created some tools for them, and in the hopes that it makes their social media easier and their website uploads. So I've added Dropbox folders with all of my images. They're all named. So if you bought the U-ring and you want to put the U-ring on there, they've got the image and can pull it into their website pretty easily. And so I'm hoping that these tools will be enticing, I guess, to prospective buyers, that I'm able to give them some kind of ease.
Right. And help them with sell-through, because you want your product to be successful in their shop as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like those options.
Another thing that came up was free gifts. Just kind of understanding that this time is complicated, and incentivizing sales is something that is effective for buyers. Buyers want something free.
Yeah.
And so if it's not going to be able to be free shipping, could I, toss in 10 rings to the buyers and let them do what they want with it. It's something that is not super time consuming on my part. There's definitely money. I mean, I paid for these parts, but it's a lower cost item for me, and something that is super attractive. It sells really well for me and for my buyers. And so that was something I hugely considered was, hey, here's 10 rings, have fun, do a giveaway on your website. Like if you wanted to do a giveaway on your website, here's content that I developed for my last giveaway, cut out my name and insert your name. Like however they want it.
Easy. Yeah.
Right. Just trying to make it easy for them to use my product and to help them gain. Or if they got an order that's over $, toss in a free ring.
Yeah, like if you meet a minimum. Yeah.
So how can I be of assistance to the shops and come with them to their playing field and help them get what they want? Because when they're selling, they're then in turn going to need to place reorders from all the buyers or from all the makers. And, how can I create that traction for everybody?
That's really smart. It's funny. One of our early customers, I remember getting them set up on our platform, and nowhere on their wholesale area, they had this whole portal in it. They never said the word wholesale. It was all about retail partners, and this idea that it's not so much that you're selling people things, it's that you are empowering them and helping them sell your brand, which is, it's very obvious, but I think things like that, where it's, you're not just kind of throwing throwing a line sheet at them and saying, here, what do you want? It's like, no, here are the tools, here's the story I want to tell, here's how I think it's great to tell it. And most importantly, I've done 90% of the work for you. Just, fill out the template and have this whole custom, the voice of the author coming out of your speaker.
Yeah, to that point, when I was at New York Now, I had some really great feedback from a couple of different people. And one of the gals that came through was so eager after hearing my story to buy my work and to sell it. She was very excited about it. And like I said, a lot of my pieces have a story to them, and it makes them easier to sell because it's a relatable, real, valuable story. And it's the passion that I put into that product when I made it. But for her to be able to translate that, and she was just like, oh, I just want to take the whole like amount of this story and the passion that you have given me. And I mean, there was crying, there was hugging, there was a lot of stuff. It was really great. It was a good experience. But she gave me a really great piece of advice, and it was to write my stories down, and each piece that I sell would come then with the story. And I want to do it. It's overwhelming because I feel like I'm super wordy. I'm never very concise. So if there are any copy editors out there that want to help me condense my stories, just send me an email. But I think that it would be kind of cool, you know, like they could lay the piece out in the, you know, well, I was going to say lay the piece out in the case for when their stores open back up, but you know, maybe they just need the copy for the website.
Yeah, it could be.
But yeah, to be able to kind of write down the stories, and that seems a little I'm not sure what the word is that I'm looking for, like kind of a duh moment where I'm like, yeah, I should be able to just write this story down. But to me, my hurdle is that I get so much out of the feedback from you when we're in a conversation, that I need to be able to hone those feelings and be able to write them down. But that's another thing, another tool that I'd love to be able to provide to the shops is getting that content down on paper per se, so that they can use it for themselves.
Yeah, and these are all just like really great examples of how to pivot when you can't be in person. Like
Right.
You're not going to be able to hug that person and have a teary moment, even though that's like an amazing, beautiful thing about a trade show that you can do. But
Right.
how are we able to convey our personalities in a virtual way? And I think that's a really big question.
Yeah. And like, you know, coming back to the thing that started this conversation was whether or not I choose to try out Faire. And like you said, Dave, it's like maybe 30% of my relationships with my vendors would be personable, and ones that I've hugged and ones that we've been able to communicate. But maybe some percentage of those would come from Faire, and it would just help me pay the bills.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
You
it's
know?
true. I mean, a channel's a channel. And I should say, I don't know, you know, I would not be wanting to encourage people to, like, everybody, if you're on a platform, read their terms of service, because I know that we are very open over here. We think a channel's a channel. If you're selling, like, Candid, as far as I'm concerned, is, you know, we would love to be your one and only, but we're just another store.
We're into open relationships over here.
We're into open relationships.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's right. And you know, you're going to have different customers on different platforms, and that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, right now, it's like, why would you limit someone who's struggling for their business to survive? Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. Is there any sort of closing thoughts you want to tack onto that, or?
No, I think that was kind of really my closing thought was that, you know, that's the thing that I still keep pondering at the end of the day is whether I need to kind of give up that hope that I would have personal relationships with every single one of my suppliers, and or just kind of take what I can get from Faire and hope that I get some reorders out of them to kind of offset that 25% commission that they take, which I think is extraordinary. And
commission is a polite term for it, but it's quite a bite.
Right. It is a huge, and can my margins, you know, absorb that? Like, I never set it. I set up my margin to be able to sell for wholesale and to make my own money in retail, but it wasn't to then take part of that and give it away to somebody else. Like, that really has never been part of that. So, and I guess, to be fair to anyone that's listening that doesn't know what there's so many other parts of Faire. If someone were to place a reorder, I believe the commission is 15%. So it's only on the first order that 25% commission comes. So it's worth if you're interested in it, if someone is interested in it or has questions, there's kind of a lot with it, but that first 25% is still a killer. And not knowing, based off of how that tool works, whether or not they're going to place a reorder is hard. Yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that at Candid, our percentages that we take per transaction range from 1/4% up to 2% on our free plan. So those are your apples to apples. One is much smaller.
Yeah.
One is 100 times smaller
Right.
than the other apple.
Yes. And I feel like for that percentage that you've taken, I would happily pay you that because of the help that you guys have given. I mean, it's been extraordinary. And that one-on-one relationship, I mean, that you've been able to provide me has been great and super helpful. So yeah, I've appreciated that so very much, Dave.
Well, thank you so much. No, it's why we do this. We're pretty lucky to live in this space and work in this space where it's this, you know, the reason you can't commoditize the things you're selling is because they're not bags of flour or containers of hand sanitizer. Like this is a pretty unique nexus of art and commerce that fulfills a very human need that just kind of, I think, makes everything that happen on a much more human level than you're going to get with some of the more widgety things out there. So yeah. We're happy to have you as a user and a friend. And thank you so much for taking the time to share your research with us. This was extraordinarily valuable, and I hope we did a good job of presenting it as fairly and equanimously as we can.
That's a good word. Thank you so much for having me, Atosha. Thanks for finding my post and engaging with me in that way. If anybody is still interested in participating with this, that's watching this video at a later date, I have the link to fill out these forms on my website. And so they're just Google Forms, but you can get the link on my website. And so I'll just make that available. If anybody else still wants to engage or have a conversation, shoot an email. Happy to hear what anybody has to say.
Fantastic. And that's RebekahJDesigns.com.
Yep. REBEKAH. So weird spelling for Rebecca, but
but a great one. Awesome. And yeah, for anyone just joining us kind of from out of the blue or seeing this maybe at a later date, we're Candid over here. We do these Candid Shop Talks once a week, roughly on Wednesdays around lunchtime. We have a huge archive where they've been recorded and in some cases transcribed to just make it so easy to catch up on your watching. But it's really fun. We started this Facebook group with the onset of the COVID pandemic as a way of just filling the void that was left by all of us kind of working in our home offices or laundry rooms. And it's really been really nice. It's a lot of fun to have these meetings, and hope we see you at the next one.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks so
much,
Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's been a pleasure.
Bye.